Hi, everyone. Welcome back to season 2 of Tattoos and Toddlers. And like I keep telling y'all, every single episode is so much fun because I am meeting more and more new people. And I did a call yesterday to get some guests while my husband's out of my office. Believe me, like when he came into my office, I like sharing with him, but I also like when everybody's out of the house, I feel like a whole person with just Jen right here wearing the hat of being a little podcast host today. And I have to tell you, every time I meet another Jen, I get really excited. So, Jen, welcome to the show today. Introduce
Oh,
yourself.
thank you so much for having me. Yes, it's Jen is a very, my mom swore she was never going to name her child a popular name because she was a Linda.
Yeah,
And sure enough, the 70s were full of Jens.
they were.
So
We
it's
share that. We share that in common.
I'm like, yeah, mom, you did really good job. Really good.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Jen. What do you do?
Well, I am a wedding planner for 20 years with Taylor
Wow.
Weddings. And I also help creatives, wedding professionals with their wedding business. So it's now, I've been flipping and flopping around with my name. I'm going back to Jen Taylor Consulting. I
Mhm.
do have a podcast that I talk about all things operations. So the things that you really don't want to do in your business, that's what I enjoy talking about and getting business owners like like you and other people to empower themselves to look at their business and really dig into the details and know what's going on and how it can help you in the future in your business.
No, I love that because all of us creatives who are out flying in the sky, we need somebody to tether us to the ground every once in a while
That's exactly.
because the processes and the data and everything that you do need to know that you're doing your business and your business is going where it needs to go. I think that's a beautiful thing that we all need access to. I'm sure that you and me and many of our listeners have had business mentors, coaches, life coaches, you name it, to help us get in the next step, which is great. But yeah, we need that because we have to take a look at what we're doing and why we're doing it and ask all those hard questions. And I
Yeah,
think that's something very important. So I'm glad that you're doing what you do. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So that being said, a lot of what we were talking about pre-recording here was the topic of boundaries.
Yeah.
I know that's a really big one for many people out there. Kim, let's dive into boundaries today. I want to kind
Yeah.
of talk about that. So
So
what was
it's
on your mind about boundaries? Let's go in.
it's boundaries and expectations because you
Oh
have to
yeah.
have the boundaries, but you have to give out the expectations of yourself and your clients. So as a wedding planner, I would give my clients the best practice sheet saying this is what, you're going to be wanting to expect things from us, and that's fine. And this is what we expect from you because, it's a working relationship. So it's you're creating that work life, and a friend of mine, previous coach, she calls it harmony. So work life
Yeah.
instead of balance.
I
It,
like that new word that's
I
going
know
around.
she said it last week, and I'm like, I'm going to take it and run with it. So it's really important to do this. It's not a myth because it is an essential component to a healthy and effective workload. Because if you're just burning yourself out, you're not going to be good. So what I want to people to think about is health, resentment, and burnout. If you are not setting your boundaries right, you're affecting your health because you're just running ragged. You're resenting yourself, your clients, and your family because you're not setting those boundaries, and you're working on your kid's birthday, or no, you're resenting that client.
That's a big one right there. Yeah, that's a big one. That hits me hard.
Like I mean, I had somebody reach out to me and they wanted a whether it was for whatever it was our anniversary. It was my anniversary with my husband, and it was our 20th. And I'm like, no, not 20th. It was our 10th. Sorry. And when we'd been together for it felt like that because we'd been together so long before we got married.
Yeah.
So it was a big anniversary, but he was going to be gone. So my resentment factor was now really low because he wasn't going to be in town. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. But if he was in town and I decided I wanted to take this wedding, that resentment would have been huge, and I would have priced accordingly with that. And
Yeah.
then burnout. You know what burnout is? It is
Oh,
literally you're just sitting on the couch. So the way to draw your boundaries and to set some expectations for yourself and for your clients and your family is work hours, meetings, communication, working from home, and your personal life. So
hmm.
those four things, five things are really important to look at. So are you working Monday through Friday? Is there a Saturday in there? What are your hours?
Are you doing that 24/7 that some of us overdo, right?
I mean, there's been time, but
Yeah.
you have, and but then there's also expectations for yourself. Like
Yep.
when, like I knew, and I still do it, and I still kick myself, but I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting here on a Tuesday, Monday night. I have nothing else to do. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna finish up some things, or I'm just gonna do a little bit of work. That's up to me.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm not forcing myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that. But if for you, if you have kids, I don't have kids. So I can pretty much do that and go, okay, I'm done. So, so what are your work hours? What are, because even if you're like, oh, I just work when my clients need, no, you're working. If you are running a business, you're working on those things in your business as well. You're not working on your business, you're working in your business. And then where are you meeting? Are you driving all over town to meet with clients? Are you meeting them in an office? Or do you tell them, I meet at these locations? Or
Yeah.
now, after the pandemic, like I was using Zoom before the pandemic, but then after the pandemic, Zoom is now the best option for
It
anything.
really is. And when I can get people on those video calls or any kind of video calls, it's so much different than trying to do a phone call.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even trying to meet them somewhere, trying to get a schedule set together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like now with Zoom, it's so much easier. But in the past, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Past, I mean, I had a DJ friend who said, I meet in these five Starbucks. And they're all over the Puget Sound area. So depending on where they lived, he would map out the ones he would want to meet at. And that's what he did until he got an office. So really figure out, like, don't be driving all over town. Like I had a girlfriend planner. I'm driving home from Seattle. She's driving, it's 7 o'clock at night. I'm coming home from something. I don't think I was a client meeting. And she's like honking at me and she texts me later. She goes, I was just coming back from a meeting. I'm like, girl, it's 7 o'clock at night. I can't think. I mean, I rarely have evening meetings because I'm done. So
Yeah.
look at your own, look at how you work and when you work best. Like I knew if I had a client meeting in the evening, I would really have to amp myself up to have
And
that
it's
meeting.
like this morning I got up to take my kid to daycare and my eyes just don't work at 8:30 a.m. And I think that's beautiful. I've learned that about myself. I kind of push myself into the afternoon. We're sitting here recording in the afternoon, which is my energy starts to build right now and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got this." But no, I love that, learning who you are and how you work is awesome. It's just like it's one of those key things that if you can learn this as a business owner and a person, it just makes you even more successful in your day, your daily life, just the day, the work day, the personal day, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew. So when my our calendar for clients
Yeah.
was Monday through Friday
Mhm.
during the winter. The time here in Seattle, we don't do weddings after. Like
Yep.
weddings are kind of done after October. And then if it was during the summer, we'd have a shorter window to
Hmm.
meet. But if we had a weekend open, or I would select a weekend if I wasn't working and my team was, I would select a weekend that I would work, but limited hours. So if a client wanted to, like, I have to meet you on a weekend. Okay, great. Here's the time frame.
Yeah.
I mean, businesses do it. Why can't we?
Yeah, and why can't you just like, throw yourself in the mix? Don't always bow down to everybody else around you because they're going to take advantage of whatever time you throw at them. Like today, even I was like, sure, anytime between 11 and 4. That's a really long window.
It is a really
But
long
at,
window.
but at the same time, I was like, but the person I'm speaking to, I know already. So I know it's not going to be a heavy call. It's not like a new client, it's a friend. But still,
Yeah.
when I threw out that time range, I was like, that's a really big time range.
Yeah. I try to keep my time. I mean, like, I really sit down and block my time out. Do
Yeah.
I honor it all the time? Not necessarily,
But you
but
still do it.
I
Yeah.
still do it. And so I know that I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to be working from this time to this time. And I'm going to have some breaks in there, but I know who I am and how I want to work. So that's really knowing and being able to then put that out to your clients or to your family.
And stick to it if it's on your calendar if you can. Come
Yes.
on. Come
Yeah.
on, y'all. Just
Yeah.
speaking to the choir here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then communication. How do you want to be communicated with? Like
Yeah.
I did not want text. I do not want to plan a wedding via text. If I knew if I didn't give this best practice sheet to a client, they would text me and I'm like, "Oh, I did not go over this well enough."
Yeah.
And so my best communication is through email because I can file it, I can go back to it, I can go look at it. And for you, somebody else could be cell phone, it could be,
Yeah,
text.
and as a photographer, like I need to go back and I need to see what we talked about. I need to see what images were important to them. Like I need to see that correspondence and like you said, like print it out and look at it. Like I need to look at it off of a device.
Yes. Yeah. Or is it through a project management system? I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you have you tell your clients, this is the best way to communicate with me. If
Yeah.
it's like we told them, if it's an emergency, then you can call the cell number. But if it's not, then you're calling the office line and you're leaving a message, or
Excellent.
you're sending an email, or putting something the planning, software that we could go back and look at because I don't want to be bombarded with text. It gives me anxiety because I'm not responding back. Like I have deleted my email off my phone because I used to sit in a at a stoplight checking emails. I'm like, you're going to be home in frickin' 5 minutes.
You can wait.
You can freaking wait.
You're
Like you
talking to
don't.
yourself like, stop it. You don't need to look
Yes,
at
you
it.
don't. You don't. You don't.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
that's, so communication is a big part. And then working from home. A lot of us work from home.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? There's housework, there's, interruptions from kids if you have kids that are, and then the whole working from, schooling from home and working from home was a huge deal. So
Yeah.
what does that look like for you? Like if you have kids and they're at home, and I have that, if it was me, if I had that door closed and there was a sign saying, do not open this door unless you're bleeding out of the eye sockets, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. And I've
I'm
often talked to my husband recently. I was like, can we just get like a screen door for our office? Because this room was turned into an office and we moved the door from here to the it's a weird house.
Yeah,
Move the door from there to the kitchen area so we could lock the cats out if we need to, because by the way, we have three cats and a child. So it's
yeah.
more than enough going on. None of them have hit my lap yet. So we're lucky on this recording that nobody has hit my lap yet. I have three gray cats. They're adorable. But I've often thought about that as a solution because when he or I do need that quality time of shut the door, don't bother me for this amount of time, that's quite powerful to know that you can implement that. Like it's something you can do if you're a parent or if you've got a lot going on in your life, if you're caretaking for people. Being able to shut down for an hour or two, even for your own personal rest, not just getting work done, but like I haven't found the solution yet for this door frame, but I've been thinking about it for a long time. I was like, it'd be nice to have like a screen door that you can look through,
Yeah.
but it still feels like you're closed off to the world. And so, maybe one day that solution will present itself. But I love the fact that, yeah, just get in here, set an amount of time, even set a timer. My daughter loves setting timers now. Like she's into it. She's like, I said, set your timer for your thing. And she'll set, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. 30 minutes, whatever I tell her to set it for. And it's really interesting how different it is when you set a timer to something versus
Yeah.
nothing at all. Like you'll
Yeah.
just go and go and go and never stop
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
never start.
Yeah. So, really look at how, like if there's, work, if everybody's home, really setting those boundaries and expectations of like, I'm going to be working from here to here.
Yeah,
If, it's like with summer, they're all home. Summer is coming up. And so what's that look like? And really setting the expectations with your family and your, your clients and yourself.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love this. I love all these little things that you've broken down for us today. And there was something else I was going to share on a personal note too, because, as we're talking about businesses and, the people in our lives with our family. And so here recently, I've shared this briefly online, but we had a couple of storms come through here in North Texas, and it completely demolished about 80% of our fence, and 80% of our fence was laying flat on the ground. It was really kind of hilarious in a way. I was not bothered by it. I was actually really excited about it. But then I started thinking about, what does this fence represent? Like, what does this fence really mean in the aspect of our lives and our businesses? And it's a nice set boundary to a piece of land. Well, for us, it's the backyard. It's a set boundary for a piece of land that kind of like houses this comfortable space where we can gather together, we can go outside. We see bunnies occasionally. And so when the fence fell down, I was like, wow, I feel like my boundary has just completely fallen apart. And then yesterday, y'all missed it because there was roofers here working on the roof as simultaneously putting up a fence. Now, as an artist, I'm always thinking about, what does this mean internally for me? Well, I feel like I'm going to have a whole new covering on top of my head because, a lot of things have been torn down and built back up. And then same thing with our fence. We have the opportunity to rebuild what has been broken,
Mhm.
except for the tree in my backyard when we had to cut it up into pieces. I can't make that tree grow any faster than it can
Yeah.
because it's not my job to. But the fact is it's in my safe space. It's within my boundaries, and I can nurture it and grow it however I want to, or just watch it. Sometimes you just need to watch things grow after you've already planted.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, when it comes to rebuilding your boundaries, do you have any, thoughts or tips or suggestions for those of us who have let our boundaries completely fly in the wind and we need to rebuild our new fences?
Start off by asking yourself, what do I want? Where am I losing sleep? What up? Is it health reasons? Is it resentment? Is it a mix of all three with burnout?
Yeah.
And really sit down and say, okay, what are my work hours? What are my work days? And just start with there and then just grow on top of that. Where do I want to meet? How do I want to communicate with my clients? Working from home, what does that look like? Like there was, I don't know if it was on a podcast I was listening to or I was reading an article, but there was a lady that worked from home. She had a laptop or she had a computer, whatever. But I think it was, and so she would work, and she had a ceremony at the end of the day to shut everything down.
Oh,
And she left her laptop wherever it was. I've tried this. I've, it. So one day she did this. She closed down everything. She was ready to go into her mom, wife mode, personal mode.
yeah.
Her husband's like, "Hey, dear, can you go look up this?" So she had to go back, open up the computer, look at it. But then she did the same thing again. She had that same closing ceremony for the laptop. So really, if you're having a hard time with that blurred line between office and home or work and personal, that harmony is not working well, then what does that look like? For me, there's times I've left my laptop here and I just have an iPad out there, which is all I really need because I don't want to dig into all the other things for work. So that's how I've gotten around it. So I'm like, I still want to check email before I go to bed, just in case something happens with a podcast I'm recording or something.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't need to check my and I get my personal emails on there, like I have on my email account, it's like all of my email accounts. So
Yeah.
I have one place to look at that. I'm not jumping all over the place. So really, and then sit down and figure out your expectations. What is the expectation that I want from this? Because for yourself, what are your non-negotiables? Is it things? Is it projects? Is it time? Create a contract with yourself. This is the boundaries I'm going to create. This is the expectation I want from this. And then stick to it. I can tell you it's hard. There's times, We've talked a little bit of personally outside of this is I lost my husband in 2018. So he had a business I had to close down.
Wow.
I had to, luckily I had nothing personally going on for clients. I mean, I had clients, but their weddings weren't until the next year. I had a business to run because I had planners working for me. Then I had to decide what was going on with my business, and I had to figure out what was going to go on with my life next.
Yeah.
So there's times where you're just like, you know what? I create a list every day of things I want to get done. And I've learned like I don't have to cross everything off of that list that day. I can move things to the next day. I can move things to the next week. I can give myself grace if things just hit the fan and I'm just like, you know what? I'm done. So this is a process. Don't try to take it all at once. If you haven't done this, it's really something to really just look at and think about. With your clients, give them this sheet. Say, hey, this is the expectations. And I'll share that with you. I'll give you the tailored events expectation. I call it expectation sheets. We've changed it to best practices, but it's the same thing. I interchange those.
Yeah.
And review at the first meeting. When you sit down with them, like, okay, like this is what I expect. This is, and then your friends and family, let them know that you're not gonna be able to meet them at lunch.
Yeah.
Or set a day like, hey, we can meet. Like Fridays are kind of my days are just kind of like open. Like if I want to do work, I can. If I want to do CEO stuff, I can. Or if I want to go meet a friend for lunch, I can. So, give yourself the flexibility to have some fun because you are working from home. You are, but also know that you have to work on your business and having those boundaries and expectations will help you have more time in your life because you're not always running to the next thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, like we're saying in this talk is to sit down. Like if you're so busy that you can't do what we were just now talking about, then you might need to evaluate that as well. If you make yourself so busy you can't think straight, you're making rough decisions in your life, you ask yourself down the road, how did I get here? And if you don't stop and actually ask those questions, and this is different for everybody, but I feel like if you're a business owner and you're doing quarterly taxes, why don't you sit down quarterly and ask yourself some questions too?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's nothing wrong with slowing down to take a minute and just breathe and ask yourself all over again, why am I doing this? Why am I
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
What am I, and I did this, I feel like I did this like a few months ago. It was actually last fall. And I submitted to speak for something, and it was literally coming from a place of, why am I here? And I was like, I just want to get to the root of Jen right now.
Yeah.
And then it ends up that you can take whatever comes to you in these really crazy moments and you can use it as a way to communicate with others. You can use it as a way to create art. You can use it as a way to step up on a stage and inspire somebody else to figure out what to do with their next steps, right? But yeah, let's just, I'm going to encourage everybody listening, just take the time to go through some of these steps that Jen has talked about and really evaluate what you want to do
Yep.
and where you want to go.
Yeah. And you'll get that sheet and you can put it in the show notes
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. That's a great gift. Thank you so
and
much.
really it goes through each one of those things. It talks about what hours we work. So you can kind of see it. You can look at it and go, okay, this is, and we had a huge business. I had four, there was five of us working.
Yeah.
So I had a team of four. We all had weddings. So we were, it was a successful business. But having this, like, oh well, my clients won't like it. They're fine.
Yeah,
They want that, they want the guidance. That's what you're there for, is giving them guidance in what they've hired you to do.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love this. I love this. So is there anything else that we haven't covered yet with boundaries that we could share with
I
everybody
mean,
today?
it really, I think if you have kids, and they're home for the summer, sit down with them and say, I have, figure out your schedule first.
Yes.
I'll show you like this is this is something I got from somebody, and that's 4 weeks. And it's like my calendar of things that
It's
happen,
so cute.
every week. And so then it can help me figure out like how many hours do I have to support my clients and still do the things I want to do as a person.
Yeah,
And
I love
and
it.
being intentional, being focused and being disciplined means sometimes you have to sit down and go, okay, this is what the shit I need to get done.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of us have a lot of seasons to work in as well. So we know if we've been in business for long enough to know our seasons, and especially in the wedding industries and events, depending on where you are, because like we said, she's in the Pacific Northwest, I'm in Dallas. Ain't nobody really getting married in the summer unless they have a really nice venue with air conditioning half the time. But you would be surprised who gets married here in the heat. But the same with y'all, like y'all have these specific seasons where you have a chunk of time that you can set aside for the year and maybe take some time off, as well as start ramping up for the next season, right? Like you have all these little ebbs and flows and, ups and downs and pockets of time where I really realized, and for those of y'all that do have kids or you have multiple things going on, all my planner friends know it's all about that time management.
It
It
is
really is.
about
Parenting is the same exact thing. It is
yes.
like I ran a business before I became a parent. Now I just find myself managing even more time because my calendar fills up with more things that allow me to give her time as well as my husband some time and then me some time, which usually falls on the wayside and I kind of work it in,
Yeah.
as I
But also
can.
it's like you got to put on you got to put on your mask first to really be able
Always.
to then be able to
Always.
support your family.
And what's great is this week I've been going back in time. Actually, the last couple of weeks I've been going back in time and analyzing. We had the movie The Crow come out 30 years ago. I was like, oh, I need to analyze Jen at 17. So I had this really great afternoon of just analyzing Jen at 17. And then this last week, I don't know if any of y'all are, fans of the 80s movies, but the documentary Bratz came out, and
Mhm.
I felt like I had to sit down and watch that too. And I was like, that's my gen time sometimes is I want to sit down and watch a documentary. I want to think about my life. I want to let my mind wander here and there and think about who I am and where I've come from and kind of celebrate that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we're starting to round out our conversation, we initially talked about, sometimes I have guests on with no tattoos. Some people have come on with henna, talking about henna tattoos. Some people have tattoos that they've had for years that they'll never show anybody. Which I love hearing that. I love hearing all different kinds of, and I've had the people that have a tattoo in mind. They just said they haven't had the time. And I was like, okay, so let's talk about, you said you had a list of
Oh, I have
tattoos.
a list of tattoos. I don't know if I'll ever get them. My first tattoo ever that I've thought about was I'm a huge basketball fan. I was a fan of the Sonics. My
Okay.
family has had tickets until they left. And so the 90s logo with the basketball with the S was my first like, oh, that would be really fun to have that. Then now that I'm older and I have lost family members,
Yeah.
I think I'm like, what would I do to celebrate them and how I would do that? And so there's a hummingbird one I've thought of, and I have a Pinterest board full of little ones here and there. So a ukulele for my husband
Oh.
and my dad, I've kind of gone over the board with him, so I don't have one like in my mind, but it's kind of just here and there and things for myself. Like I'd probably put a pineapple on me somewhere if I wanted to do, something. So I have a list, but I don't know if I'll ever do it.
No, I love that you have a list though, because it just kind of shows that you are in a way sentimental. You've just not gone out and done it. It's like you have these images and it's like, well, maybe that one day, right? And that's again, it's like it doesn't even matter if you get it or not. The fact that you have this great list, I love that.
My sister has an India Northwest Indian Thunderbird
Oh wow.
on her back because her nickname is Bird. So she did that. So that's about as close as to a tattoo that I've gotten.
Well, I have to tell you, like I've mentioned this probably on a previous episode, but I went to New York City to do a flash tattoo with my friend Kristen, and we did one together, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back the next day. I have been a fan of Blue Man Group for 28 years and never gotten a tattoo of what I consider a Blue Man Group tattoo. And I thought initially it needed to be super artistic and explosive with color. And if you've seen the show, you know how wild and beautiful and artistic and musical it is. And then I just ended up going back to old school message board and using the forward slash backslash in a circle of three blue men saluting. And I was
Um,
like, that couldn't have been the most simplest tattoo, easy healing, but it's super meaningful. And I told the artist that too. And he's like, I really appreciate you sharing that story with me.
no.
But I find that why we choose to do things, whether or not you're getting the tattoo or not, the reason behind why you're looking at these tattoos is what I love hearing. Now, can I just interject 1 second? I got to know more about what's the deal with the pineapple?
So pineapple is hospitality, and that's the symbol of hospitality.
Interesting.
So back in the day, if you had, they used to rent pineapples if you were having a party in the 1800s or or 1700s, and you could rent pineapples and have them at your table because it would show that your status is very much that you could afford to have a pineapple. And so then it just became a symbol of hospitality along the way. So like Charleston has a lot of pineapples on. So if you see a pineapple, the original symbol is of hospitality.
Well, that's really cool. I just learned something new today. And I mean, and for those of y'all watching on the video, you can see a very large pineapple on the door behind her.
And the mess behind me too.
Yeah, no, I love that because there's something about the pineapple that's very unique and it's very, I like hearing that little bit of history. But yeah, like now I'm gonna look at pineapples a little bit differently. So thank you for that.
And then if you see, I've got the islands of Hawaii behind me.
Yes,
To
yes, because
go to
do
Hawaii.
you work there as well?
I did, yes. And I'm hoping to get
Yes.
back there and do more weddings there.
Excellent. Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you today. Like, I know that Jen's kind of rule the world, and I love that I meet another Jen and we go by Jen and not Jenny, right?
That's right. You were sixth grade, and that was a hot minute.
Yeah, at first grade, my teacher actually tried to call me Jenny, and I was like, this does not feel right. And I was like, what, 7 years old? And I was like, no, I don't, don't want to
I
be
was in
called
sixth
Jenny.
grade. I just moved back to California. I was like trying to be cool. I was a Jenny, and then I'm like, I am not a Jenny with an I. And I was not. But I have a friend who's a Jenny, and it's totally her.
Same, same. All
And
my
so
Jennies, they own their Jennies, and all my Jennifers and Jens, we look at each other and we just kind of know.
I can go back and forth like, well, do you want to be Jen or Jennifer? I'm like, I don't care.
And I'm usually like Jen with one N, and then you have the Jen with two N's, and it's super fun to like meet more people and that have that same name, and I'm like, it just Jen felt natural to me. And but yeah, in college when Forrest Gump came out, I was like, no,
Oh God,
not
no,
Jenny. I'm
no.
not Jenny. I'm not Jenny at all. Just don't even call me that. And like these complete strangers would walk up and say, Jenny. And I'm like, stop it. Like that's not me.
No, no, it's not.
Well, thank you, Jen, for coming on today. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
bringing all your awesomeness. Let's leave them with one little tidbit of information before we go. One more inspiration as we close out our talk.
Oh, I see. I do this to the hot seats on too. Um, I will always go back to give yourself grace. I think at the end of the day, um, we're all trying to work hard. We're all trying to grow our businesses. And there's times where you're on fire and you're going to town, and there's times where you need to have a rest. And whether that's during your off season, whether that's a sit down and just look out the window or go for a walk or whatever it is, there's times that your body needs that. And listening to it, I'm not very good at listening to my own body, so I know I'm preaching to like it's hard, but it's the rest that will help you move forward in your business.
Amen to that. We're going to close with that because that's kind of where I am right now. I am embracing all the rest right now. And resting does not make you a weak person. It actually makes you a stronger person. Any bodybuilder, any fitness person will even tell you that. They're like, your body has to rest so it can grow and change and shift and be stronger.
Yeah.
So, y'all, thanks again for joining me for
Thank
the
you.
Tattoos and Toddlers podcast in season 2 now. So, I will see you on the flip side of the next episode. Talk to y'all later.